is our oldest sapodilla tree. Happens to be a llano. Sapodilla is just a very popular fruit. It's very sweet. Tastes sort of like brown sugar. The fruit is at all stages right now. We have some mature fruit, some very small fruit, and some emerging flowers. So that's a good thing. We get a long season from this particular tree. Sapodilla is part of the Sapotaceae family, which also includes Mamey sapote, canistel, kaimito, abu, green sapote, and satin leaf. Sapodilla is native to Yucatan, southern Mexico, northern Belize, and northeastern Guatemala. It grows in forests and has been cultivated since ancient times. European traders took seeds to many parts of the tropics, including the Philippines, and sapodilla is now grown in tropical areas around the world where it is known by many names. India is the largest commercial producer of the fruit. The sapodilla is a slow-growing, tough, and long-lived tree. A sapodilla tree can eventually grow to 100 feet tall with a trunk diameter of about 5 feet. But trees in cultivation are much smaller. Sapodilla is hardy and wind-tolerant, which enables it to withstand hurricanes. Its wood is so tough that branches that split from wind and the weight of fruit will survive and still support normal amounts of fruit and foliage for many years, sometimes for the life of the tree. The tree is very attractive. It has small glossy green leaves, and new leaves have a red tinge. Typically, sapodilla trees fruit heavily every year. A mature tree can produce more than 3,000 fruits. Sapodilla trees can adapt to and thrive in many different environments around the tropics and subtropics. They typically grow in areas with regular rainfall, but the trees are very drought tolerant. Sapodilla can thrive in many different elevations, from sea level to about 4,000 feet above sea level. Mature trees can occasionally withstand 26 to 28 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. However, prolonged cool weather seems to reduce productivity. In parts of California where many nights are cool, sapodilla doesn't fruit well. In southern Florida and parts of central Florida, it grows so well that it has become invasive. Sapodilla trees do not like to sit in water. As long as drainage is good, sapodilla trees grow well in many different soils, from sandy ones like we have in South Florida to richer soils in other places. Trees grow from seed, but it may take 5 to 8 years before seedlings fruit. Most sapodilla trees sold in the U.S. are grafted. When you buy a grafted tree, not only are you buying a specific variety, but grafted trees can produce fruit when they are just a few feet tall. Fertilizing in spring, summer, and fall can dramatically increase fruit production of sapodilla. In India, salt water is used to encourage fruiting and discourage vegetative growth. There are many varieties of sapodilla. Trees of different varieties have different growth habits, and their fruit vary in size and quality. At Truly Tropical, we grow Alano, Molish, Hacia, and we are planting Morena. Most of the sapodilla fruit that we sell is Alano. Our Alano tree is our oldest, largest, and most productive tree, and it's a popular fruit. In Florida, sapodilla season is November to June, but the season depends on the variety and the weather. Many animals will eat ripe and somewhat ripe fruit. At Truly Tropical, squirrels and raccoons and one of our dogs seem to be particularly addicted to the fruit. Fortunately, our sapodilla trees don't seem to have problems with insects and diseases. In some areas, certain moths attack the bloom. Some varieties in Florida have problems with the Caribbean fruit fly. Also, some beetles, scale, and leaf miner can cause problems. We're picking sapodilla at the moment, and the way I pick sapodilla is when I can reach the fruit, I just scratch a little bit with my fingernail, and if it doesn't seep out sap like the stem does, it earns its name of sap here. But this is a green, but let's see if we got another side of the fruit here. But it's not sapping out. So when a fruit is not ready to pick, when you scratch it, there's actually white sap, latex, that comes out of the fruit. This is a light, juicy green underneath and no white latex. So this is ready to pick. So basically, we just go around and make a small scratch on these fruit. This is a bright green, and so not ready to pick. Here's another one that is green, but a lighter green and no white latex coming out of it. So what I do is I put these fruit into water. There's a little bit of water in the bucket, and that stops the stem from losing the sap. And the sap is a real mess if you don't do that. It gets the fruit sticky and everything. So much easier to put a little water in a bucket and just put the fruit right in there. After a few minutes, they stop sapping out. This looks like a nice one over here. It looks a little green though. And you can't really go by the size of the fruit, because sometimes you have a very small fruit that is ready to pick, and other times you have a rather large fruit that is not. So I'm just making a very small scratch in a lot of these. Whoops, there's a little unstable ground there. Oh, that one's actually ready to pick. Sometimes this happens with a fruit. It's just a little deformity in it. So probably not selling that one, but it was ready to pick. So see if I can find a small fruit. This one's a little bit smaller. Again, it's green, but not sapping out. Right there is the little nick I put into the fruit. Yeah, so that is where we're looking for the sap, right there. And it's not, if this were greener, it would be exuding white sap. But it looks a lot like that, except for it, of course, at the stem, there's a big source of sap, and if this were too green, you would just get a little bit of sap leaking out, and sometimes, making a little trail down the fruit as it hangs on the tree. Anyway, this goes into the bucket of water, and so it'll be nice and clean for whoever wants to buy it tomorrow. So we pick fruit when it is not quite ripe. And this time of year, we're only open Saturday morning, so we pick things that will ripen within the next week. So usually we're pretty good at that. Sometimes it'll be a week and a half or 2 weeks before it ripens, but it will be the right quality. So that's one reason we pick it early, is so that people can buy it on Saturday and enjoy it for the whole week. The second reason is sapodilla, when it's ripe, drops very easily from the tree. Also, it attracts like squirrels and raccoons and things, In fact, we used to have a sapodilla right next to the house. It came with the property, and there was like a family of feasters, raccoon feasters that would sit on the edge of the roof and just, like grab the sapodilla. It was not a good thing. That tree had to go. And so anyway, if you pick your fruit at this stage, when it's starting to turn, sometimes this will be brown or orangish brown underneath, and that's closer to being ripe, but it gives you a good product. You don't have to eat everything right away, and it keeps the pests away. This tree is starting to get a little bit large, and we failed to trim it radically because we didn't want to lose all the fruit that's forming on the top. Now, we have a wonderful customer from Jamaica who said once the fruit get really big, they'll ripen no matter what. And of course, the biggest ones are always on the top of the tree. So I have brought a picker so that I don't have to fall out of a tree or risk falling out of a tree. And I'm just going to grab the biggest ones here. And they should sort of gently come off of the tree if they're ripe. That one didn't come off too easily. This one looks like it could be ready. It's not coming off easily. And let's see, what do we have? This one looks big. So this is like throwing a net in the water and see what fish are in it when you come back. See how this does on the scratch test. It's green, but it doesn't seep out the white sap. So that would be ready to pick if we were, able to pick it, test it before we picked it. And this one, let's see if it also passes that test. Yeah, it does. It's at like a juicy green stage. This green, that green has started to lighten up, and so that should ripen up fine. And of course, because of the sap coming out of the stems, into the water it goes. This one looks like it's pretty big. Try that out. Of course, they always look bigger from the ground. You imagine them, it's sort of like the fish story again. When you catch the fish, you think it's just about as big as it can be, and then you get the pictures and a ruler next to it, and you think it's not really that big. So this is a little bit brighter green, but again, it's not sapping that white latex out. And this particular one is not as green. You see the difference here. And so this is a little bit riper. It's just the slightest evidence possibly of a tiny bit of white, but if this were really green, we would have a lot of sap. This sap is from the top, not from the wound in the fruit. So anyway, that's how we pick sapodilla, is we do the little scratch test, and these all have passed. So here are some of the larger sapodilla that I picked with the pole picker, and those were ready to pick, but these are also ready to pick. And those I checked, they were within reach, and so I was able to scratch them and see that the green is very faint here. It is really losing the green part of its color. And so these are actually riper than these bigger ones are. So there's a big size difference in Sapodilla. This variety happens to be Alano, and there are larger varieties, but Alano is our most popular and our biggest tree, and so that's what we sell the most of. Another thing I'd like to mention is, you know how we put all this stuff, all these fruit in the water? Well, this is what the water looks like after the Sapodilla have been in there. But you look at the end, the stem end, and it is no longer sapping out. That's what happens when you put it in water. It makes a much nicer fruit. You don't have your hands sticking to it. And so that's what we always try and do. And because I feel like there's some nutrition in all that sap, I usually pour the water, the sappy water, on a tree so it gets a little extra boost. But anyway, yeah, we have to sort of guard the really ripe fruit. And because we have Sadie over here, who's our little Sapodilla-holic. That's her favorite food in the whole world, I think. And, you know, she just can't help herself. So we have to make sure that the ripe fruit is out of range. Sapodilla fruit are round or oblong, weigh between 2.6 ounces and 2.2 pounds, and have rough brown skin. Typically, each fruit contains 1 to 6 seeds. The flesh is orangish brown and is very sweet. Some describe the flavor as a combination of brown sugar and pear. Others compare the flavor to a super sweet date combined with a sweet pear. Most fruit are picked before they are ripe. Sometimes Sapodilla can take close to 2 weeks to ripen. Ripe fruit are slightly soft like a ripe peach and can be stored in the refrigerator for a few days. Sapodilla is usually enjoyed fresh or chilled. The fruit is split, seeds removed, and the flesh scooped out of the skin. Sapodilla is also used in ice creams and desserts. The Sapodilla tree is also valued. Aztec and Mayan Indians discovered that Sapodilla's sap, which is called chicle, was sweet and satisfying. Eventually, they started to boil the sap, which reduced it to something that was enjoyable to chew. It was sweet, refreshing, and made their breath fresh. In the 1860s, chicle was introduced to the U.S. and soon became a major ingredient in mass-produced chewing gum. Until the 1960s, when synthetic gum replaced chicle in most chewing gums, growing Sapodilla for gum production was big business. Also, Sapodilla wood is very hard and durable. It was used by Mayans and Aztecs for buildings. Remains of Sapodilla wood are still found in ancient ruins. Nutritional values for Sapodilla vary quite a bit by variety. In general, the fruit is high in sugars and has a fair amount of vitamin C. Additionally, it has some protein, fat, riboflavin, niacin, pantothenic acid, B6, folate, calcium, iron, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, and zinc.